We are on Chav Zayin of a base. Now, I just wanted to mention one of the themes that we had the Gemara about a brisa. If a person, you want to take one of the screens off, okay. If a person prays on the same line of his rabbi, right? Or we said a person is not supposed to pray on the same line right next to your rabbi, because it's standing directly next to your rabbi, but as if you're showing that you're equal. And the Gemara says also if you would stand right in back of your rabbi, so to speak, it also would be a problem because it's as if you're showing that you're equal. And we said if you go ahead and you give shalom to your rabbi, but you don't give him the proper greeting, you don't say good morning, shalom aleichem, rabbi. You say just shalom aleichem the way you would give ordinary shalom aleichem to anybody. Or some other things that the Brisa mentioned. It says that all these things will cause gorim shechina shetesalek mi Yisrael, that the divine presence should leave the Jewish people. Why is that? Because God cannot take to be among people who are arrogant or haughty people. And the theme about those things that were mentioned is as a person who has arrogance, like the guy who opens up his own base medrash, his own place of learning, and he gives public speeches without the permission from his rabbi. That's a lack also of respect. So it seems to be the lack of respect, which is a sign of arrogance. God can't be there. Just like it says Hashem can't be among people who have fight, who have machloket. Hashem says, I once went to a couple's house. They weren't getting along properly. Thank God it's years later now, and thank God they're still married. But I told them that God cannot come into this house. Because you guys the way you guys are acting to each other, God can't come into the house. And that's what we have to understand. He doesn't want to be there. Shalom Aleichem. So God does not want to be in the place where it's put a Shechina, Morning Shmuel. God doesn't want a place when people are arrogant, people are full of themselves. God steps out. Meaning he removes his whole. Oh, so for sure it's talking about your rabbi. If it's because he's your rabbi, you refer to him as rabbi, right? So as a rabbi shul, maybe you should also have a certain level of respect, also respect for everybody. But the idea that you have to say to him Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi, might be more to somebody who's more of your personal rabbi or something like that. The Gemara says, and then the Gemara we ended yesterday, that why did Rabbi Yirmiyah, how was he able to pray right in back of Rav? Wasn't the we said that it's a problem for a student to pray right in back of his rabbi, and the Gemara answered because he wasn't just a student, he was a student and a colleague. He said he was a student and a colleague. Because he was a student and a colleague, that there was no limitation to him to pray back of his rabbi. I would still think, you would still have to be 4 amot away if you be there, you shouldn't be directly in back of your rabbi. But the general limitation of that we said a person shouldn't pray in back of their rabbi, something special, unique, in back of their rabbi, will not apply to somebody who is a similar league as his rabbi. One idea we said is why you shouldn't pray in back of your rabbi is because maybe it looks like you're bowing down to your rabbi. But it won't look like you're bowing down to your rabbi if the rabbi is not, it's like your colleague, right? It doesn't have the. It's a good question. When the Gemara, because the Gemara is talking about you're praying directly. It seems from the Gemara you're praying close behind him. You're not too far away from him. It's not clear to me how far you're back of your rabbi. It seems to be you're close enough to the rabbi that it might have an appearance that you're bowing down to him. That's how close you are. And we say that it only would look like you're bowing down to your rabbi and not to God. It's only if you're in two different leagues. He's in. Right. We spoke about that. So we spoke about you're supposed to have anyways 4 amos between you and the person fighting. So I would say this maybe, let's say if you're 5 amos back of your rabbi. So let's say we could learn the Gemara that way. That he doesn't, the issue of being within 4 amot of the rabbi, that wasn't he was 4 amot, he was more than 4 amot away. He was 5 amot away when he prayed. Therefore he wasn't, since he was more than 5 amot away, right? Let's say one was more than 5 amot away, there's no problem. But the issue is, but it still looks like you're bowing down to your rabbi. Even at 5 amot away, you're 10 feet away, and you're in that line. It looks like you're bowing down to your rabbi. So the Gemara answers, it doesn't look like you're bowing down to your rabbi if he's similar league as you. Not only it's true that you learned from him, you attended his classes, but you're the same level. This rabbi, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, was a similar level of greatness as Rav. Since he was similar level of greatness as Rav, no one's going to say he's bowing down to his rabbi. They don't look at him as his rabbi, so to speak, because he's like a colleague. Okay, so therefore that's what the Gemara said yesterday. Now, the Gemara says, "V'hainu dekamale Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba l'Rav." That's why Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba said to Rav, "Mi badalt." He asked Rav, he said, do you separate from malacha? That means when you accepted, when you prayed the Friday night Amidah early, right? One of the things that Rav did, Ariel, right? What did Rav do? He prayed Friday night early. So when he prayed Friday night early, that means he did the Friday night Amidah while early before sunset. He prayed Arvit. He made like the early Shabbat. No, he made it before Shkia. He prayed before sunset. He prayed before Shkia. He prayed Arvit like in the summertime. What time is sunset in the summer? It could be 8:20, 8:15, and we make it after Plag. Yes, after Plag HaMincha. No problem. He prayed after Plag HaMincha. So the Gemara says, so he asked him, okay, you prayed the Shabbat davening. But does it come with that you have to separate from malacha? It's before sunset still. You pray the Shabbat davening, but does that mean that the Shabbat already now it's Shabbat for you and you can't do malacha? Or is it that you're praying the Shabbat davening, but you're not really accepting the Shabbat through that davening? Just like, for instance, a lady technically we allow, maybe under certain circumstances or whatever, if a lady, let's say she needs to travel somewhere after candlelighting. You live in a building and she wants to go down and she lives on a high floor. I don't recommend people should live in a high floor because they get issues on Shabbat. It's hard, it's not with the elevator. But if you do live on a high floor, and the lady said that, and you go into a neighbor to eat, and she doesn't want to walk down the 30 flights. So technically, I mean, in the Ashkenaz community, this is what we do. I don't know if the Sfardim do. They light the candles and they have in mind they're not accepting the Shabbat. So they could actually say the bracha l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat, but you're doing this in honor of Shabbat. You're lighting the candle on Shabbat. It's not yet Shabbat for you, right? You have this kind. You could say a bracha about lighting the candles, honoring the Shabbat, just like when you clean your house, you're honoring the Shabbat. But you didn't accept the Shabbat yet. If you if you made the condition. Generally, we say that the lighting the candles for a woman is usually the acceptance of the Shabbat, unless she has in mind otherwise, right? So the Gemara says, morning Haron. Morning. So the Gemara says, by the way, I don't see the people on the screen. So the Gemara says, then when he said to the rabbi, when Rav Yirmiyah said to Rav, mi badal, when he said mi badal, did you separate? So he didn't say mi badal. So what happened? I had to come with Rav Abba, Rav Yirmiyah, I had to come with Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba the Rav. Mi badal, did you separate from doing malacha as well early? Meaning, is there like an acceptance of the Shabbat? Since you, Rashi says you like accept the Shabbat in your tefillah, so that acceptance of Shabbat, the recognition of Shabbat in your prayers, does that also bound you that you should not be able to do malacha? You should not be able to do work. That's the question that he wanted to know, and he said yes. He says, "Amalei in bedilna." As a result of the davening, the Shabbat davening, that makes it that I'm not able to go ahead and do malacha. We separate from doing malacha once we did the davening, even though it was a very early davening. It's before sunset. Now, v'lo mi badil mar. Didn't say, when you talk, what do you say? You talk in third person out of respect. Did the master separate from work? That's one way you can ask the question. Or you say, did you separate from work? You is what he calls second person, more direct. The way he referred to Rav when he asked the question was, he just said, did you separate from work? He didn't say, did the master separate from work? Now that type of talking in third person is the way you would talk out of respect to your rabbi. You would go ahead and you would say, did the rabbi separate from work as a result of praying early? But the fact that he didn't talk with that type of language would seem to indicate that he was not a real regular, ordinary student. Because if he would have been an ordinary student, he would have referred to the rabbi as Mar. He would have spoken in third person to Rav. He was the master. But since he did not say that, that's why it shows you that he was more of a colleague. And since he was a colleague, therefore there was no problem of praying in back of the rabbi. And it doesn't look like you're bowing down to the rabbi. It doesn't look like a sign of arrogance and I'm in the same line near you, so to speak. It's not a problem. Now the Gemara asks the question. You're telling me, if you daven Friday night Shabbat, you daven early Friday night, you're telling me as a result of that prayer, you have to refrain from work, right? You have to refrain from malacha as a result of praying early Shabbat. So the Gemara says, I have a story. Listen to this story. The Gemara says, "Mi badalt, Rav Oven said, morning, Mike. Morning, Yosef Tzaddik. Yosef and Mike, welcome to town.
Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. So the Gemara says, Rav Oven said the following. Morris are about 8 lines from the top of Chav Zayin of the base. Yeah. Rav Oven said the following. Pam achas. There was one time, Hispalel Rebbe shal Shabbat Berev Shabbat. Rebbe prayed the Friday night davening early. He didn't wait till Shkia. He didn't wait till sunset to pray the Friday night davening. He prayed the Friday night davening before sunset. And he prayed with enough time that after he prayed, the nichnas lemerchatz. He went to the wash house, the heating place where the water would be heated up and you bathe what do you say? Not the mikveh. This was the wash house. You know, there's an idea in honor of Shabbat. You take a nice hot bath, or have shower. So that was the common thing. They didn't have showers back then, so they had baths. So there's especially in honor of Shabbat, he took a bath. So he went and he took a bath after he prayed Friday night, the Friday night prayers. Mm-hmm. Took a bath. Now the Gemara is thinking he actually took a real bath, and a real bath on Shabbat, you can't take a hot bath on Shabbat, right? You can't take a bath on Shabbat. So he said he went out after he took the bath, Rishon Alon Pirkin, and he taught us our learnings. When we finished learning, it still wasn't dark yet. That means he prayed Arvit, most probably right after Plag HaMincha, most probably. So he had maybe approximately an hour and a quarter till sunset. And that hour and a quarter, he went ahead and he went to the bathhouse. He had a nice hot bath, the Gemara is thinking. He went there, he taught some Torah, and it still wasn't sunset. So we see that if you pray early Friday night, the Gemara is asking, it doesn't come along with the prayer. The Gemara's issue is when you pray early Friday night, does that bind you? Are you bound to refrain from doing malacha work since you prayed Friday night early Shabbat? Or maybe the prayer counts for Shabbat. You did a Shabbat in honor of Shabbat. You made a special prayer, but you didn't. But you don't have to refrain from work yet. Work you can still do. You prayed, you did honor, you prayed, you gave honor to Shabbat by praying, but it's not Shabbat yet. So the same way you honor Shabbat when you clean the house on Friday, doing that in honor of Shabbat, even though it's not Shabbat yet. If you're cleaning, it's in honor of Shabbat. So maybe I say a special Amidah in honor of Shabbat, a special prayer in honor of the Shabbat, but it's not Shabbat yet, maybe. That's the Gemara's question. Is it possible? The Gemara is saying it seems that you could have the phenomenon that it was, you prayed the Friday night Shabbat prayers, but it's not Shabbat yet. You can do work. That's what the Gemara seems to be questioning. What we said before, that Rav says, yes, I separated from work once I did the Friday night prayers, even though it was before sunset. The Gemara says, Amar Rava, that story was the Nichnas Lazeya. When Rebbe went to the bathhouse, he did not go to the bathhouse to take a hot bath. That you can't do on Shabbat. Now, the rabbis later on said not only you can't go to a bathhouse to take a hot bath, you also can't go to a bathhouse to do they call it a schwitz, to sweat. People used to like to go to a steam room, right? Yeah. So you can't do that on Shabbat also. So, but there was a time, but that prohibition that the rabbi says you can't enter a steam room on Shabbat happened later on. There was first the prohibition of bathhouse to bathe, then they eventually added the steam. But the time that Rebbe entered into that bathhouse, he did not enter the bathhouse to take a bath. He entered the bathhouse to take a steam, and therefore it doesn't show he did malacha. You wanted to say after he davened the Friday night prayers, he went to the bathhouse when he prayed early Friday night. You wanted to say that shows that you're allowed to do work even though you prayed the Friday night prayers early. The Gemara says no proof. Really, you can't do work once you said the Friday night Amidah, the Shabbat Amidah. So what does it mean that he went to the bathhouse? He went to the bathhouse at a time period in history when you were allowed to go to the bathhouse to take a what do you say, what do you call it? A steam, just for the steam, before they made the Gzeira. Then Hahu, the Nichas Zeyah, the Kodim Gzeira, was before the rabbis made a Gzeira on going into on taking a steam. So therefore, it's no proof that you're allowed to do work after you daven the Friday night daven. Of course, the halacha we all know. When we make an early Shabbat and we pray Friday night davening early, and it's still before sunset, we don't do any malacha. We don't do any work. The Gemara says, "Eini Take care. You too. Shabbat shalom. Is that so? Abaye permitted Rav Dimi Balavoy to sulfurate the baskets. That means to smoke the baskets with this sulfur, which some say this sulfur is like it will go ahead and give a color to the basket, or it's maybe it softens certain things when you smoke it with they smoked it with the sulfur. That's how they smoked the basket, and they put the sulfur, they heated it up, and they smoked the basket with this sulfur. And it was after they already Rabbi Dimi already had prayed the Friday night Amidah. He prayed the Friday night Amidah, and yet he was allowed to do a malacha. You can't go ahead, you can't color a basket, you can't paint, you can't write, you can't make things on Shabbat. And so he went ahead and he permitted him to actually make this, smoke up the basket. It means if he smoked it up, it means he used fire. One of the melachot of Shabbat, he's not allowed to make a fire, right? So and that's one issue, and also by making the kelim and making this basket, manufacturing this basket with this sulfur to color the basket or to soften the basket or whatever it is. That's you're building or whatever, you're makav patish, you're making it's a type of malacha. You're doing something wrong. So yet he allowed him that even though he prayed early Friday night, he still allowed him to do a malacha. But you just told me that once you pray the Friday night prayers, you told me you cannot do any malacha, even though it's before sunset, right? So that's the Gemara's question. You hear the Gemara's question? Everybody hear the Gemara's question? That over here, when it came to the Gemara before, Rav says, yes, I had to refrain from doing malacha, had to refrain from doing work once I prayed the Friday night prayer, even though it was before sunset. And here we see that this rabbi did work, even though it was before sunset, but he already prayed the Friday night Amidah. That's the question. You see the great Ariel over here, everybody in the back? So that's the Gemara's question. Mike got a good smile. You know that? Ariel, you hear that? So that's the Gemara's question.
Rabbi, basically once you do Kabbalah Shabbat, you're in Shabbat. Whatever happens after, happens after.
Right. Even though it's early, even though you prayed early,
yeah.
and it's not, the sun is shining.
If it's not early, even if you didn't do Kabbalah Shabbat, Shabbat is here.
Right. But the fact that you prayed early, that makes you responsible to refrain from malacha. So the Gemara says, but so how did he allow him to go sulfurate the baskets? So make the baskets after he prayed Friday night. He's doing malacha. Let's say he manufactured baskets, okay. and he heated up. He heated up the sulfur, and the smoke from the sulfur went into the and the sulfur, this chemical went into the basket, and therefore the basket got a special color or whatever. How do you allowed to do that on Shabbat? So how did he allow him to do this on Shabbat? So the Gemara says the story over there was different. That was a mistake. What was the mistake? The people, they didn't have Timex clocks back then. They didn't have cell phones that tell them the exact time of the day. And it was a cloudy day. And they thought that it was getting dark. And they thought it was Shabbat. Shabbat is coming. So therefore, they went ahead and they prayed the Friday night Amidah with the intention that now it's dark already. It's after sunset. I need to pray. And therefore Shabbat was accepted. That's why they accepted Shabbat. But if they would have known it was still really day, they would not want to accept Shabbat early. that early. They weren't looking to us to pray early. They weren't looking to accept the Shabbat, to refrain from malacha early, before the necessary time to refrain from malacha. So since the whole praying was a mistake, meaning this talk this they only thought it was night. That's why they prayed then. But if they would not have, they only accepted the Shabbat because they thought it's the right time. This is the mandated time that you need to accept the Shabbat. But once they saw that the clouds moved away and the sun was shining, they saw that there was a mistake. They made a mistake when they accepted the Shabbat early before. And therefore, the fact that it was a mistake, the only reason why they accepted it was because they thought it was the time to accept. So therefore, that's why they're not bound by that mistake. The mistake, sometimes you make a mistake in life and you made the mistake. It's done. And sometimes you could fix up your mistake, right? You could fix up, or there's, whatever. You realize you made a mistake, and now you start over again. That's what the Gemara is saying, that he held. You realize you made a mistake, and it's still before Shabbat, so therefore you could do malacha. That's what the Gemara says. But now the Gemara says, you're telling me that once they make a mistake, you're telling me you're not bound by that mistake. And even though you've prayed the Friday night Amidah, you could still, once you realize it's still daytime, you came out of shul, you could go ahead and do malacha. That's what the Gemara said. And now the Gemara is questioning this point. You're telling me you're not bound by your mistake? I'll show you. It seems that you are bound by mistake. Let's see what the Gemara says. We have Mike. Mike, you have the Gemara about 10 lines of that? The first word of line is me. Mike, you have it? Mi hadra. You have it, Mike? Yes. Mi hadra. Somebody, Morris, you have it? 10 lines, about 10 lines from the top. Tuta mi hadra. If someone makes a mistake, are you going to tell me when someone makes a mistake that it's you're bound, you're not bound by that mistake? What do you mean? V'ama Avidan. Avidan says the following. Pam achat miskashu shamayim ba'avim. There was one time that the heavens was full with clouds. And like this week's parasha talks about Hashem, it was an Amud Onan. It was a cloud that traveled in front of the Jewish people, right? So one time the heavens were very cloudy. People thought lomach chashechu. They thought that it was dark. It was night. They thought that the clouds, they see it got dark. They really thought it was night. So what happened? And they entered into the Beit HaKnesset. Nispalu, and they daven arvit. Why did they daven arvit? Really, they would want to daven arvit. They wanted to daven arvit when it was dark, and they thought it was dark, and they prayed arvit. Nispalu shel Shabbat Motzei Shabbos v'Shabbat. They prayed the Saturday night davening on Shabbat. V'nispazu ha'avim, and then the clouds went away. V'zorcha hachama, and the sun was shining. So they see that it's really still, it's not Shabbat. It's not really Shabbat. We made a mistake. We thought it was dark, right, Morris? They thought it was dark. They had no clock. So they went in, right? They thought it was dark. And what did they do? They prayed the Friday night Amidah. Then they realized that it was a mistake.
Messed up. How can we do the computer there?
No, I'm right. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking. So the Gemara says, and what happened? They came and they asked Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, what is the law? Do they need to pray again? Because they prayed with the understanding that it was nighttime. It was Shabbat time already. But now they realize they prayed early. Do they need to pray again? Since you prayed, It's done. You don't have to pray again. That prayer will count for Shabbat, even though you prayed a little early. And even though you made a mistake, you thought it was what? The time of Shabbat, and it wasn't, but you get credit. It's not like that you did the Shabbat early, you made a mistake, and therefore as if poof, nothing happened. No, we say your prayer counts. So the same way you say your prayer counts, so the Gemara's question is, so why is it if they made a mistake, in the case of that maybe
We can hear you.
yes, the case of Rav Dimi Bar Levoi, when the Gemara wanted to say that since he made a mistake, since they made a mistake, they were allowed to go ahead and do malacha, right? Because they only accepted Shabbat thinking it was nighttime. So the Gemara's question is, if that's the case, but we see you get credit for the prayer. If you get credit for the prayer, so then even though it was done by mistake, so the Gemara is thinking the same way you should have to refrain from malacha. If you get credit for the prayer, you prayed Friday night's prayer early. You thought it was dark, but really it was not dark. It was really daytime. It was still before sunset. It was after black. Let's say you prayed and you thought, and you made a mistake. You still get credit for that prayer, right? You get credit for that prayer. So why, if you get?
It means you stay in Shabbat. You stay in the Shabbat.
Do it again.
You stay in the Shabbat mode.
I'm saying, and you get credit for the prayer, and the Gemara says if you get credit for a prayer, most probably means that you're in the Shabbat mode. If you're in the Shabbat mode, you get credits counted as prayer. So therefore, why are we saying that when they prayed early Friday night, when they made a mistake, they could do malacha? If the prayer is a good prayer, it's accepted, and in the prayer you talk about Shabbat, you accepted the Shabbat, so therefore you should have to refrain from work. That's what the Gemara that's what the Gemara says. So the Gemara says, how do we address this issue? We have a contradiction. Again, what's the contradiction? One place it says when they made a mistake and they prayed early, they're still allowed to do malacha. And one place said allowed to do work. One place says when they made a mistake and they prayed early, they don't need to pray again. So the Gemara says, shiny tzibur. A tzibur is different than lo matachin lo. The tzibur, a minyan, is different. That we don't go ahead and we're not matriching them. We don't go ahead and make them go ahead and pray again. Even though the prayer was done in mistake, we go ahead and we say, the prayer was done by mistake. We say you don't have to pray again, you can get credit. The rabbis will say you got credit for that prayer because to tell the minyan to come back and to pray again is not easy for the people. But they're allowed to do malacha, they're allowed to do work, except we're going to give you credit for the praying. Because really you shouldn't even get credit for the praying. Like the story of the other Gemara before. That if you made a mistake, right? Again, so what we're saying that if the community makes a mistake, you don't have to pray again. If an individual makes a mistake, then he would have to pray again. So therefore, if you made a mistake, you could do malacha. Really, everybody could do malacha if they prayed by mistake. Because really, the prayer shouldn't be accepted. It's only accepted because we want to make it easy for the people. Because it's going to be difficult to get them to come again. So that's what the Gemara says.
So, Rabbi, you can compare this to a person that walked by the synagogue, and someone from the synagogue opened the door and said, "Listen, we're missing one person for minyan." they invite him to do the minyan, okay, and they're going from mincha into Kabbalat Shabbat, and then they finish, and then you realize, like, wait, but I have still things to do.
Yeah, but that's different, Yosef, because there you willingly, you said the words of Shabbat, you said the prayer of Shabbat. You willingly.
But what if you were just sitting there to complete minyan?
Yeah, that's not accepting. That's not accepting Shabbat. Just sitting there to complete the minyan, you were there for them, but that's not called that you accepted Shabbat. But if you prayed with them, and there was no mistake. It wasn't the time was the time, except you decided to pray with them. It wasn't that it was a cloudy day and you thought it was early, it was later, but it was really early. You knew what's going on. So if you prayed with them, you would have to. I would say you have to refrain from doing malacha.
But your attention wasn't to pray just because you request for to help with
the
minyan.
But at the end of the day, you did pray. At the end of the day, you said those words. See, you said those words about Shabbat in your prayers.
But if you said over there and you just been in minyan, it doesn't count for you. If
doesn't count. It doesn't count for you. Except that's not a kind of count to accepting Shabbat. Right.
Okay.
Now, we have another little piece of the Gemara. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Chia bar Oven Amar Rav. Sorry, Amar Rav Chia bar Oven. Rav Chia bar Oven says, Rav Salish Shabbat Be'erev Shabbat. He says that Rav prayed the Shabbat davening, Erev Shabbat, right? He prayed the Shabbat, Be'erev Shabbat. He went ahead and he made early Shabbat. Matzli Shamutzi Shabbat b'Shabbat. Rav Ushia took it even to a new level. The new level of praying Saturday night early, while it was still, which we don't do.
Yeah, we don't like.
We don't do that. We don't pray Saturday night the prayer before it gets dark. But he went ahead and he prayed that in halacha it says under certain circumstances where you have to travel for a mitzvah, do things for a mitzvah, and yet this is the time you have, and therefore we might allow you to pray Saturday night prayer early. But in general, we refrain from it. The Chafetz Chaim says we want to discourage it, because if you pray Saturday night early, then the women think, or people think, you could do malacha, because they see you prayed Arvit. They think you could do malacha. So don't pray Saturday night early. Don't pray while it's still daytime.
We had this issue this summer because
Talk a little louder.
We had this issue because last year a lot of people wanted to do mincha
Right.
on Saturday, and they wanted to do it. Should you do it alone after night, or should you, in a situation like this when there's only one minyan but they're doing arvit before nightfall?
Right. Very good. Good. Right. I bet some people will say that maybe
Now we decided to do it without the minyan after.
without the minyan, right? But I'm afraid the great Ariel brought up a great case. Everyone here in Ariel's case, very practical. COVID-19, people would daven mincha, and they wouldn't want to wait long because maybe they might not want to stay together so long.
Yeah.
They want to limit the amount of time, and it's not dark yet. The ideal thing is that the shul, and it's the only minyan, should they pray Arvit right after they finish mincha, pray Arvit, and then and they'll tell the people to wait to do malacha till later, but they're praying Arvit early on Shabbat afternoon? Or is it better to tell people go home and you pray the Arvit by yourself rather than praying the Arvit early? So Ariel says that the minyan that he prayed, and they said better people should go home.
No, they wanted to pray, but
they wanted to pray. But Mike and Ariel said no, it's better to pray later, and if Mike's father, better to pray later by yourself than to pray early the Motzei Shabbat prayers early on Saturday. So
it should be halachot corona that everyone should pray alone and that's it. So then we
Open here, the doors fully open. We also, I have to go now because I have to make a call that someone's waiting for me to call. You'll forgive me. All right? Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day. You too.
Bye bye,
you.
guys.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye-bye. Shabbat shalom.